Good morning, Rabbit.
Oh,
Today is Friday, March 1st, 2024. It's 9 a.m. and we're resuming our work on S-254 and activating, including rechargeable batteries and battery containing products under the state battery stewardship program. Mr. O'Grady, you could join us at the table again. Thanks so much. We had a conversation yesterday about one sort of definitional wrinkle in terms of 254, and I think we have, you've drafted an amendment, and I'd like to go through that with you, if you could remind us what we were trying to sort out, and then take us through the language. That'd be great, thank you.
this is like a Brady, but like I said, council, you should have something that says draft 1.1 with the February 29th date stamp for the 2/13 time stamp. As you all know, the state has a battery stewardship program which applies to a range of batteries. And what S-254 is doing in part is bringing battery containing products underneath the program. And battery containing products are defined as an electronic product that contains primary rechargeable batteries that are easily removable or that are packaged with rechargeable primary batteries. But the concern has been that the intent of bringing primary battery containing products into the program is you want to get the batteries from those products. You're not looking to bring a product into the program. And there was concern raised by some of the advocates, interested parties, that if a battery producer whose batteries are in an electronic product is already in the program, why does the battery containing product manufacturer also need to be in the program? So you basically would have a duplicated membership or an unnecessary membership for the manufacturer of the electronic product. So after the advocates discussed this issue in conjunction with the agency, they proposed amending the definition of battery containing product. And you will see for purposes of the discussion that I just framed out that on page 1, line 15, a new subdivision C is being added. And it says the battery containing product does not include an electronic product if the only batteries contained in or supplied within the battery containing product are supplied by a producer that has joined a registered battery stewardship organization as a producer for that battery, and the producer of the covered batteries that are included in a battery containing product provides a written certification of that membership, both the producer of the battery containing product and the battery stewardship organization. So if you're an electronic product producer, battery containing product producer, and the producer of your batteries is already in the program, then you don't need to be subject, you will not be subject to this program, provided that you give notice that the battery producer for your product gives notice to you and to the stewardship organization that their batteries are within the program. And it's actually a pretty elegant solution because battery containing product, the term is used throughout the bill. And if you were gonna try to redo it any other way, it would have probably required a significant rewrite of the bill.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, I'm a little surprised that this didn't come up in other states.
Well, remember that Vermont was the first state to have a battery program, and probably one of the first states to be reviewing, hey, what do we need to do to
Forward.
all of these programs need, a look back and revision to make them timely and applicable to their market.
And thank you, a nice answer to the problem. No white.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for resolving this, it would seem
Wasn't
like
me, it was the advocates in the
they came
agency.
together. Oh, well, shout out to them and
Right.
thank you
Wow.
for coordinating that.
You actually took care of it. Adjusting that definition to make it work, like ditching part 3 or C, whatever it was.
So you also get credit, thank you. My only question is, if there was a concern with a product that falls under this category, what is the relationship that because we're talking about toys mainly, it seems to be, what is the relationship to the manufacturer of the battery who is different than the producer of the product? If there is some kind of change needed or, how is that, I guess I'm just trying to understand if for some reason there is something that the producer of the toy is not doing wrong, but it might be something that they need to address with the manufacturer. It's now the producer of the toy who is basically kind of liable, I don't know the right terminology, but they're kind of in charge of maybe communicating that with the manufacturer they're getting the battery from.
So, so if you're a major toy manufacturer, you likely have a contract with your battery producer.
Yeah.
And part of that will be going forward, some agreement that the battery producer notify Vermont or any other state battery stewardship organization that that their batteries are covered by the program and the toy manufacturer is not subject to. It's something that the toy manufacturers will have a incentive to ensure that they never come underneath the umbrella of the program.
Okay, so we still have that, and then just. I know that the way this bill is designed is not meant to prevent, like, it's not meant to prevent fires based on the production of the battery, or like the type of battery, like, we're never going to be requesting a change in how people make their batteries because of the fires that have been occurring. But if there was something that the EPR organization found and they needed, can they make a recommended change to?
Yes, the plan and the program itself is on a renewal basis. And at any point, the secretary can require an amendment to the plan. So the stewardship organization or the manufacturer producers, but the need for another plan, they can petition the agency to do that.
And then the manufacturer of the battery would still be needing to make a change, even though they're not directly in the organization, it's the purchaser of the battery in their product. Maybe I'm just making.
In most cases, the manufacturer of the battery is going to be in the program.
Yes, and in this case, if let's say the program identified something that needed to be changed, it would be the Hasbro's of the world would need to communicate that change, not the EPR organization itself. Or like they wouldn't need to go to the manufacturer, the toy maker would have to do that work if there was a change that was needed.
I guess I'm not understanding what kind of change are you envisioning? Who's changing what?
So we've heard that fires are started at a greater rate due to certain types of batteries at these facilities.
Which facility?
The MERS.
Okay.
If there was a recommendation by the organization that said this specific type of battery is not being properly dealt with, or there needs to be, I don't know if they can request a change in how the battery is being placed inside, or whatever it is for consumer safety.
So one of the things that the bill does, it brings into the program. Hold on a second.
I guess to crystallize my concern, I just want to make sure that the manufacturer of the batteries, if they are not a part of the EPR program, that they will still have to adhere if there are safety concerns or changes that are recommended by the organization. I believe the answer to that is yes.
if they're not part of the program, if they're not subject to the law, then they're not subject to enforcement under it.
So the people that Hasbro buys the batteries from wouldn't be subject to it.
Let's leave Hasbro out.
Okay, what's it?
Let's talk about the batteries that are causing fires,
Okay,
all right, and
they
so.
seem to be mainly machine tools.
So one of the things that the bill does on page 4 is it changes the definition of a primary battery. The one that's 4.4 pounds or less, and it includes alkaline, silver oxide, zinc, air, carbon, zinc, and lithium metal batteries. So those batteries are part of the program, will be subject to the program. In addition, you will see the very end of the bill on page 30. Section 2, that is the landfill disposal provisions, and underneath this. These are the batteries that are banned from going to your MRF, that are banned from going into your landfill, etc. And they will include rechargeable batteries, those ones that are in those tools. And so they will not be going into the landfill anymore. Your solid waste disposal district may select or elect to be or continue to be a collection point for waste batteries, but they will have to comply with all the requirements for safety and environmental management. Will that reduce all fire risks? No, but they're managing them within the primary, the battery containing part of their facility, not the recycling facility or the general municipal solid waste facility. And so there should be a reduced risk fire, and if there is a fire, the fire should present less of a threat to expand because of it won't be in the plastic, it won't be in the MSW.
Okay, and so, thank you. And I'm looking at that section of the bill. To be clear, if you manufacture a battery, even though you may have this specific definitional change, you would still have to meet the requirements of the bill.
You have to fall underneath the definition of the battery that's covered. There are all kinds of batteries. I can't say that every battery producer is covered by the bill.
Oh, that's fine. I just wanna make, I guess I'm just trying to make sure that we're not taking out a group that was previously covered in the bill. Okay,
You're adding into the bill people that were not.
we're not covered
The
previously.
rechargeable batteries are now part of the program. Silver oxides and air carbons and they're not part of the program. The larger size batteries are now part of the program. And that's,
Alright, well, thank you. And my fear is assuaged.
I mean, with today's adjustment just eliminates that sort of double jeopardy
Yeah,
piece. If you're using batteries already, you're encasing in your product a battery that's already in the program, and the U.S. manufacturer still have to pay for the parts. So you meet your obligation to source the battery. Okay, right now, we are going over the language Mr. O'Grady's office proposed yesterday along with others. Sort out the definition on 254 the battery. Any other questions about the lines? Yeah, they're. Good morning, Senator Watson. Sorry you're not feeling well.
It is okay. I did want to, I've been listening. I just wanted to pop on to say I have no questions.
Okay. All right, so if there are no further questions, welcome a motion to amend the bill as described in paragraph 1.1. So,
Hmm.
thank you, Mr. McCormick. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Okay, so 5-0 on amending. And then, for a motion to vote the bill out favorably. So moved. Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Clerk will call the roll.
Okay. McDonald,
Yes.
McCormick,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
White, yes. Chair Bray.
Yes. 5-0, thank you, everyone.
Who will be the reporter?
I was gonna say, does anyone feel drawn or charged by the bill? I thought so. I saw a lot of keen interest during last discussion. Okay. So Senator Watson is the reporter. I was sold. Since you're out of the building, I'll figure out something about how we deliver it to the secretary.
Okay.
I'm happy to, I mean, I've got a bad track record. But I'm happy to be that person if you wanna put your trust in me.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Brady. Let me figure that out.
Have a good break.
Thank you, you too.
Yeah, we might need a work around. Like, I can sign it, put it in, Senator Watson will be the actual reporter.
I also may be able, I'm hoping that I will be able to come in later in the day. But anyway,
Okay, so if we don't, well, how about this as a workaround? I'll sign and deliver it and you'll be the reporter. And at worst, the calendar will be inaccurate, but you know, before the bill was called up, I walk up to the pro tem and say, oh, to the lieutenant governor and say, the reporter will actually be Senator Watson, and your list gets called on and away we'll go. So
that sounds fine.
easy peasy, as they say in Popeye. Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
yeah, but Senator Watson has to come in because she has a great scarf on, at the very least, so.
Thank you. This, is that what Spirit Day today is?
Are those constellations?
Good scarf day.
Scarf, I have a short scarf on, and these are festive colors. Right. Okay, so we have.
So Jessica just pointed out to me that you had wanted to change an and to or on
Yeah.
page 6.
Yep.
That is not in the amendment.
Okay, it's an easy change for us to make, should we? Do we have to back up and re-amend? Because we said yes to it yesterday,
Right.
it's just that can we treat it as a scrivener's error? We authorized it yesterday.
Yeah, all right, I'm just, if that's what, Scrivener's error, I'm gonna change it to put it in the amendment. Have it revised.
Yeah.
Send it back out.
We
Okay.
signed off on it yesterday. Thank
Okay,
you,
all right.
thank you, Jessica.
Gotcha.
Takes a village. All right.
Ellen was scheduled to come at 9:20, it's exactly 9:20,
Okay,
so. For her.
I've noticed on some of my slips that people are enthusiastic about the bill, they got to me one of the ones.
Yes, I also received numerous from folks who are not from Vermont.
Well,
Okay, it's 9:20.
Great deal,
Okay.
national participation.
so while we have a few minutes in transition, I want to talk, I put a list of things you might consider reading over
Would you put War and Peace on
I thought only the first 4 chapters.
there?
I thought there was something that's a little bit of
But not Anna Karenina, just
one,
one.
you want to substitute.
Okay, thanks.
I started to read War and Peace.
Yeah,
I got angry at Tolstoy. How dare you think that he is entitled to this much of my life? It takes a lot of time This is good.
That's what Infinite Jest was for me. I was like, this is.
Well, it's stayed in print for a while, so it must be something. Good morning, Mr. Kowski. So, I was just trying to say a little bit about post break. So I would encourage people to, I don't think it's on the reading the stuff there. But we all have a hard copy of this report, the report to the legislature, first check back report on the clean heat standard. Came to us from the PUC on the 15th. And,
We made copies, page.
never,
This is the one that was due on June. coming
Yeah.
up.
oh, this includes a deliverable, it talks about a deliverable state in June of this year.
But this is before the June statement that we are looking forward in.
Yeah, we asked them last year to, you're at 18, I never called that. To have 2 reports to us, and this is the first of those, so it's a status report, so we could keep an eye on a complicated implementation path, and this indicates some duress that people are operating under because of the an aggressive schedule. So wanted to be able to provide a chance to hear from the PUC, learn a little bit about the report. I think just due diligence on part of the committee that wrote with it. And I haven't reached any conclusions myself, but we'll learn from when we get back. Anyway, I thought people might want to read the report. It is not that long. And
She
so
did
just in
some-
case it feels daunting, there are quite a few Gantt charts in the second half of the time of the charts. All right, so in order to help us read the report and think about what is in the on deck circle potentially for when we're back. That's 305 and 306, 2 committee bills that deal with PUC. Plus Senator Watson's 255, equity and public access at the PUC. So, and then we also have the Energy Efficiency Modernization Act that we passed and, the way it's been handled gives me some concern. In terms of what we requested, in terms of running a pilot program. And the way it's been interpreted, which I would say has in a certain way flipped its wings. So want to learn more about that. So all that preamble, good morning, Mr. Kowski. Could you acquaint us with 305 and 306, please?
What did we do? I think, tell me.
And sorry, 255, these two are right next to each other and I just see them,
Yeah.
I keep forgetting.
Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel. So what did you want to start with 250?
Let's go numerical work.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So that,
Unless you feel like, oh, it makes more sense to introduce them in certain ways, and then we'll just follow that.
so S-255 is Senator Watson's bill.
Yeah.
So she can perhaps give an explanation at some point. S-255 is an act relating to equity and public access at the Public Utility Commission. So it does a couple of things related to the PUC. Section 1, it's amending the duties of the auditor of accounts and directing them to perform a full performance audit of the PUC every 3 years. So before I get into the specific language, I don't work with the auditor statutes very often. I did consult with the Ledge Council in our office who does. So if you have specific questions, you may want to hear from the auditor specifically or someone else in Ledge Council.
Who would that be? Who? That's her?
Tim Devlin,
Thank you.
I believe. So every 3 years, perform a performance audit of the PUC on its approach to energy justice, environmental energy and equity policy as directed by the General Assembly. With attention paid to how, onto page 2, the commission promotes access to its proceedings and ensures equitable outcomes from the programs it oversees, and faithfulness in executing the policies enacted by the General Assembly, including complying with all current legislative intent and direction to the commission. on or before December 15th, 2024, and every 3 years after, the auditor shall report to the General Assembly on the results of the commission's performance audit required under this subdivision and recommend any statutory, budgetary, or regulatory changes necessary to address concerns identified in the report. After the first audit, the auditor may contract with an independent third party to conduct subsequent audits. The provisions of 2 VSA section 20D expiration of reports shall not apply to this report. And then there's a $80,000 appropriation to the auditor to perform the first audit. And so I do just want to say, the auditor does already have authority to audit the state agencies, and in fact, did recently perform an audit of the PUC. This,
Yeah.
however,
Do you remember the date that came up? Was it summer this past?
no, it was after I had written this billing, so it was December or January, I believe.
24, or 23.
It was within the last 5 months.
Right.
4 months, 6 months. So, and we'll just say that so they already have authority inherently. But what this language does is provide specific elements for them to review and a 3-year schedule. And allowing them to hire an independent contractor. I don't know about how often they do that. I think there might have been testimony in Senate, so Senate GovOps did look at this bill.
Yeah.
I think there may have been testimony that they do this on occasion of using a third party. I don't know, anyway, I was just not talking, but
Okay, on the same way.
No, I don't remember, I was in that committee, so I just have a question about on line 3, page 2. Faithfulness and executing the policies enacted by the General Assembly, is that a common term that we use, and what does that mean as a metric for how you, what would, I don't think I've ever seen that, maybe it is very common and I just haven't recognized that, but what does that mean?
so I don't even really know what a performance audit is.
Okay,
So I don't know if that is language in their parlance.
yeah,
It suggests to me that they're supposed to look at the directives the PUC has been given and how closely they actually comply with them.
yeah, okay,
But I don't have a ton of information on
The
it.
term shows up above.
yeah, I
It's
guess.
in our other losses.
Senator Watson.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I had,
Just raise your-
she had her hand up. And
No
she
worries.
answered, so I figured she had a. Oh,
Thank you. Yeah, that what Ellen has said is at least was also my intent, which is to say that the word faithfulness here is intended to be just checking on the alignment between legislative intent and these actions.
Cool. Thank you.
okay,
One,
yeah, so Senator Watson, since we're talking about it, and it's a little unusual. Can you just say something about what motivated the bill, like what your thought was?
Yeah, sure. So I guess in my short time so far in the legislature, I feel like I've heard a number of stories, I suppose, about places where, you know, the legislature has passed some statute and or initiated some program, and then the Public Utility Commission, for whatever reason, seems to not have done what I guess we would have expected. And so there seems to be some misalignment, and I think it would be worth like checking into like why do those things happen, and if there are some is there something systematic about it? Is there do we need to be more precise in some ways to get the results that we are looking for? I mean, just as an example, the Energy Efficiency Modernization Act is one example, but there are others. Does that help clarify Does that answer your question?
Sure, that's helpful. I mean, and you know, it's not impugning any operating area to say we would like to have a closer look at how our work is being handled. I mean, that's part of what is behind the whole Fish and Wildlife Board, where we went through a 2+ year experience where we asked for a certain kind of piece of work to be performed, and then concluded the General Assembly through Elkhart that what we asked for didn't quite happen. It did in many ways, but not in a certain way.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Senator Watson, for introducing this bill. I would have co-sponsored it if I had been on my game. But I
Good
watched,
afternoon.
yeah, I mean, now maybe.
I've been winning my game.
So I have two questions. The first is the first is, this doesn't ask to directly work with the environmental justice group, is my understanding. We have the PUC has an environmental justice committee or group, or is that the public? Maybe I'm,
Section 4, section 4.
okay, they have. So I thought they had one already. I thought they had an equity advisory group already.
Why, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, you wanna get to that?
yes, okay, and then my other question, which maybe you can answer now, is did you review the PUC report that's already come out from the auditor? Or have you spoken to the auditor about that?
So I did speak to someone in the auditor's office. And there's some other part of your question.
No, that's,
What was the first part?
well, did you see the report? And I guess it just didn't.
Oh, yeah, you mean the one that was about like, is the PUC taking too long?
Yeah,
I did, well, and it sounds like that was, there may be a few cases that take a long time, but that is not the norm, so, but this is not.
it's not an issue, okay,
Yeah, this is not on that particular issue.
thank you.
So the other half of the bill is establishing a equity advisory committee at the PUC, and section 3 is repealing the existing equity advisory group, which is specifically related to the clean heat standards. So what it does is it first repeals the clean heat standards group and then takes nearly all that same language and makes it a general PUC equity advisory group.
Thank you,
Yeah. Haven't you sat through this before?
I know, it's like, why is this so familiar?
So on page 3, it's adding section 35 equity advisory group to the Public Utility Commission. The commission shall establish the equity advisory group to the Public Utility Commission to assist the commission in developing and implementing policy and programs in a manner that considers equity and environmental justice. Its duties shall include providing feedback to the commission on strategies for engaging Vermonters with low income and moderate income in the public process for rulemaking. Supporting the commission in assessing whether customers are equitably served by utility programs. Identifying actions needed to provide customers with low income and moderate income with better service. Recommending any additional programs, incentives, or funding needed to support customers with low income and moderate income, and organizations that provide social services to Vermonters. Providing feedback to the commission on the impact of its programs on the experience of Vermonters with low income and moderate income, and providing information to the commission on the challenges renters and residents of manufactured homes face in equitably accessing renewable energy programs, and recommendations to ensure that the renters and residents of manufactured homes have equitable access to renewable energy programs. So this is nearly identical to the language that's in currently 30 VSA 8129, except that language is specific to portable heat. This language also is addressing mainly renewable energy programs. And the PUC does a lot of things besides renewable energy, so you may want to consider that. And then on page 4, subsection B is the list of members, and so it is the same list from the existing statute. That group has been appointed. I believe they've already started their work. So, do you want me to read through that list?
I think now we're pretty familiar with it from S5. Thank you.
It's the same.
And because this would be a permanent group, they have per diems, but they also, shall serve staggered 3-year terms with 3 members expired each year, because there are 10 members. And then there's an appropriation of $8,000 to cover their per diems. And then, on page 5, there's one last thing, it's creating a new ombudsman position at the PUC to focus on improving public access to the commission and its proceedings. And there's $100,000 appropriation for that. So, and then I would also just flag that if you're gonna repeal the equity advisory group to the clean heat standard, this is a standard effective date of July 1, 2024. They have started their work already, I believe, on the clean heat standard work, so you could wait until after, they are set to, the group is set to dissolve after the clean heat rules are developed. So you could delay and like sort of shift this to basically transfer after they've done their clean heat work, as opposed to changing it midstream, but that's just an option.
Thank you. Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just looking at the membership, this might be a question for Senator Watson, more than Ledge Council, but you still have the Vermont Fuel Dealers Association on this list. And I'm wondering if that's because there's a belief that the PUC will be looking at heating fuel in the future as they look at propagating rules around the clean heat standard, or was that contemplated? It feels like at this moment, it doesn't make sense for them to necessarily be on it, but potentially in the future, there might be implications for the fuel dealers.
I would take a whack at the answer. And that is that fuel dealers are involved in, well, besides the fact that they have, I don't know, 100,000 customers, or maybe more than that, 120, it's a big number.
Yeah.
They're also, they are the agents of delivering fuel in the low income programs that provide, fuel subsidies, the OEO programs, the state programs. So if you were just trying to make sure that people who actually implemented maybe one of the biggest fuel assistance programs in the state were part of the conversation, informationally, it'd be helpful to have them just in the room. They have a long history, a lot of knowledge about the people that program, any program we're trying to serve.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair. I guess my question is more, my understanding of the PUC right now is that they don't regulate heating fuel. And so, but they may in the future, so if we pass a bill ever in the future on this topic, which we may or may not. So I know we have, but we haven't put anything forward, so I'm just wondering if that was a forward-looking thought, because they will be regulating it, or do they have a way that they regulate heating fuel now that I'm not fully comprehending?
They are now, by law, charged with writing the plan to regulate those fuels, and that's supposed to be available in June. Where are the people that were here last week telling us about, from the agency of
Natural resources.
why are they witnesses to this bill? I mean, they gonna testify, or have they come and gone and we've got what we're gonna get from that?
Well, we are only doing a walkthrough of the bill. I take the point. There are multiple, so EJ has popped up. It is housed, the most robust program, compelled in part by the work of the Vermont Climate Council, got housed in the Secretary's office at ANR. That's Mr. Monday and Ms. Lucino, who visited with us last week. my understanding has always been that EJ is supposed to be throughout all of government. ANR was actually by virtue of having the climate council and the GWSA work, they ended up sort of quote unquote going first. But their way of looking at things and evaluating and participating was supposed to permeate state government. So then when we did affordable heat, we sort of cloned that same concept and put it into affordable heat. And now I feel like Senator Watson's trying to generalize it and say, instead of bill by bill,
Let's do it all.
how about at least, this would be addressing all work at the PUC? And I might expect in future years to have someone at AHS say, how do we do EJ for all of AHS and all of each operating area, and there is an interagency component to the work of Ms. Raimundi's office, so I think they are helping push out EJ frames of reference to every other operating area,
Equity lens.
bring an equity lens to all work. So I think Senator Watson's sort of just pushing the frontier faster by that's my read on the bill, but
I agree.
you're not in the room, so I'm speaking up too much on your behalf. Please go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's accurate and feels true to the intent of why I wrote it. I guess I would just add, to your question, that at least to my recollection, the intent was just to take the existing group and just copy it to be moving forward. But that's not to say that I'm that was just for the sake of it being transition, but totally open to on an ongoing basis considering the membership of that group. I just didn't want to upset the apple cart too much by changing the membership for the draft anyway.
And I'll just say on environmental justice, you did pass a bill requiring environmental justice rules at all the agencies. But those rules do not need to be adopted until July 1, 2026. Including most of the state agencies. So ANR's rules will be first, they're gonna be in 2025. But then the rest of the agencies, yes, are supposed to build off what they've done, build it, so. Yeah, still kind of early in the development, so this could fill in the gap.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, one possibility if we were to go forward that makes sense, maybe to me and Senator Watson. Feel free to disagree and say, let's push it around sooner, which would be to take that group that exists now and have it more transition into taking on all topics as opposed to trying. Because I'm just sensitive on behalf of the PUC, which isn't my job, but I can imagine them feeling like it's a lot of work to stand up that group, convene it, get working. And probably they would like to maximize the utility of all that work to date and have it become the basis of maybe an ongoing.
So, Mr. Chair, we're using terms like not upsetting the apple cart. This notion of equity and justice for low and moderate income people is designed to upset the apple cart. The trucks that deliver heating oil to poor and moderate income people are the same trucks that will stop at the next driveway and deliver it to people that have a lot of money. Where is the equity in our discussions about? There was our equity in here, we're passing bills for it to be somewhere else.
Okay, well,
Where are the folks who came in last week? Who are the equity people who work for the Agency of Environmental Protection? Who were instructing us on what we're supposed to take into account, but they're not here today.
well, so, we could have them, well, we're only introducing the bill. We have no witnesses. So that's, you're a little ahead of our program. I was just trying to get the ball rolling so that when we come back week after town meeting, we would have the bills themselves under our belt and be in a better place.
You're. As you do, Mr. Chair, your correct procedure, and maybe I'm getting ahead of.
Yeah,
Setting the apple cart before those things are in place, but. If. We are to achieve these goals. The people that have already been hired and are working in state government, I hope that they attend these meetings and not leave us. In our lawmaking to figure out the subtleties in what they. Are supposed to be. Doing.
Sure, they're experts for sure. I don't, I have to think about it some, they're housed at ANR, not the PUC, but they would still be helpful to us thinking about this. And the PUC having convened their own equity working group, probably when they're in, because they are coming in, they're scheduled for Tuesday when we return. And speak to the very point. So. You're not, we have to put the apple in the cart before you can upset it, but we're not quite there.
They've been in the cart for decades.
All right, any more questions on 255? All right, then, I'm keeping an eye on the clock because we are gonna go to the floor for a joint session. Well, let's go on to 305, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, you're welcome. Thanks for
Thank you.
being vigilant.
so S 305 is sort of an act relating to miscellaneous changes related to the PUC. So this is a collection of changes that are all fairly minor. So section 1 is correcting an existing reference to the former Public Service Board and making it the Public Utility Commission. All right, section 2. Section 2 on page 2. So one of the things that this bill does in a few sections is condense all references to the number of days required for notice of hearings at the PUC. And just adds cross references to the statute where the general notice requirement is established. So in section 2, it 30 VSA section 8D is amended to read written notice of a hearing before a commissioner or hearing officer shall be given in accordance with 30 VSA section 10. 30 VSA section 10 says the commission shall give 12 days notice of all hearings unless it's one of the exceptions where there's different. So 12 days notice of a hearing.
So, and some of these, so this is language the PUC asked me to bring to the legislature. This in case people want to like, why is it here? This is why.
So next in section 3. It's updating a reference so that it, in 30 VSA section 10C to read, as used in this section, the term hearings refers to public hearings and evidentiary hearings. All other proceedings before the commissions may be held upon reasonable notice. So then it's 12 days again for public hearings and evidentiary hearings. And then all others, any other proceeding would be reasonable notice.
And is that, it's not underlined, so it is that's current law.
Yeah, so what it currently says is a scheduling or procedural conference is held at reasonable notice, so that probably would fall into that. Still. Next, section 4 is updating 30 VSA 102. The language that's being changed on page 3. And again, it strikes the reference to 12 days notice and says notice of a hearing shall be given in accordance with section 10 of this title. Shall be published on the commission's website and in the newspaper general circulation.
So this all feels like just cleaning up statute, your cross-reference, the common plan, what's the time?
Yeah.
And suppose it's filling it out over and over again.
Yeah, and I mean, I think You could choose not to do this if you didn't want to, but I think the PUC sees it as streamlining. The same change has been made in section 5. So on page 4, notice of a hearing shall be given in accordance with section 10 of this title and shall be published on the commission's website and once in the newspaper in general circulation. And then finally on section 5, this is another sort of piece of cleanup, I think. 30 VSA section 248U. So 248 is the CPGs for electric electric generation facilities. So a certificate of public good under this section shall only be required for an energy storage facility that has a capacity of 100 kilowatts or greater, unless the commission establishes a larger threshold by rule. So it's rearranging this sentence to strike reference to a stationary facility exporting to the grid. And that is because the definition of energy storage facility defines it as a stationary facility exporting to the grid. So the phrase that's struck
Yeah,
is part of the definition of energy storage facility, so it's redundant.
So,
Energy storage facility is defined in another section. And so it is defined as a stationary facility exporting to the grid.
okay, so we're not
Changing.
We're not eliminating the stationary piece of it, it's just.
Yeah.
Not
interesting.
confusing the definitions or being redundant.
So. It doesn't have to be stationary, it could be on the back of a 18-wheeler trailer and parked there full. As long as it's needed, it's okay, same thing.
Well, I remember this coming up in finance a year ago, let's recall how this got sorted out.
I think I don't know if this is the same language from last year. This is an energy storage facility is already defined as a stationary facility
Elsewhere,
elsewhere.
so this is
Or a truck that has batteries on it, that performs the same function as batteries on a cement slab, but it's not. It's not.
I don't know. I am unfamiliar if that is check of that.
So we're just,
The
Taking
key
it-
difference generally is whether or not if we're talking about a car or not. Often. I don't know if your mobile facility that you were just describing is counts as stationary. I don't know. But I think when the definition was discussed years ago, there was a conversation about whether electric vehicle met the definition of energy storage facility.
right. Thank you for that. And then in this case, we're not changing anything, we're just striking a phrase that need not be there because we've defined energy storage facility elsewhere. Safe. Clean code, whatever, I think computer terms, clean code. You wouldn't necessarily want to put a descriptor in there that could then could become different in the future and you have some cleanup here. So if we take it out and it's gonna be easier to keep the law clean. Got it, thanks. And then we have a very controversial effective date.
July 1.
Yeah, but why is that controversial?
Okay, that was a joke.
Oh.
This is just, this is happening for humor at the moment. This is how bad things have gotten.
It didn't pass for you, right?
Exactly.
Still have to do before vacation, it's getting out here, you know.
Okay, any other questions on 305? All right, I set the pattern here. Let's go on to 306.
Alright, 306. Let's keep the controversy rolling. It's clean heat.
I knew it was gonna have a moment.
Alright, so this is the act related to changes to the clean heat standard. Before everyone freaks out, these are also these are basically technical corrections, I think arguably. With one exception that I will explain, but I do think these are pretty small and will not overall impact clean heat as it's going right now. So first, although people can disagree with me, I should not have editorialized that much. So on page 1, section 1, looking at the annual registration. So the commission shall maintain and update annually a list of registered entities on its website. And it's striking the phrase that contains the required registration information. So I think you should hear from the PUC on this, but I think their concern is that some of that information should be confidential. So it's just going to maintain the list of the entities.
Based on the conversation I had with them, and they'll be in here to talk about it. When fuel dealers were registering, I think they also had like sales volume, things like that.
Yes.
And in terms of competitive information, they didn't want their competitors to know what their sales. So this specifies that the website could be a subset of the total data collected on the form. I think that's interesting.
Section 2 is changing the date by which the default delivery agent needs to be appointed. So on page 2 currently, I think you all recall that there will be a default delivery agent as part of the Clean Heat Standards. And there was an existing requirement in here that they designate the first default delivery agent by June 1 of this year, so in a few months, which of course would have been before the rules are even finished or adopted. So they are asking to change that to designating the first default delivery agent within 180 days following the General Assembly's authorization of the adoption of the Clean Heat Standard.
And I'd say based on conversation, again, we'll have the full testimony that it's maybe very difficult for any party that might consider becoming a VDA to know whether or not they would want to apply to be a VDA until they can actually see how the program's going to run, and that won't really be fully specified until a rule is written. So it's a little bit about cart before the horse question. Others will argue for it. I don't know if that's my understanding why it's not.
So section 3 is amending a piece of the rulemaking, the statutory rulemaking section. So on page 3, there is language directing first in subsection C that the commission's rules may include a provision that allows the commission to revise the Clean Heat Standard rules by order of the commission without the revisions being subject to the commission's requirements of the APA. And then there's some requirements there. So they have to provide notice, allow a comment period, respond to all comments, provide notice of the language changes in their outreach materials, and then have language assistance. So then there's a change being proposed. So any order issued under subsection C of this section shall be subject to appeal to the Vermont Supreme Court under section 12 of this title, and the commission must immediately file any orders, a red line, and a clean version of the revised rules with the Secretary of State, and then to this committee. So they're changing the reference to any order issued under this chapter shall be subject to appeal and have to provide notice of it. So just the orders issued under subsection C. I'd like to hear an explanation of this. Because I think currently in statute, specifically under section 12, as is mentioned there, all PUC orders are already subject to appeal. So I guess the only difference then would be the filing the red line and the clean version with the Secretary of State and your committee. So the last year you did contemplate that there would be a few different types of orders that the Clean Heat Standard could issue. So I'm just kind of curious. I don't think this is a significant change. I'm just curious.
Right, so I don't, again, now, this is one in particular that really they'll need to explain. But my understanding was, it was a, from their point of view, something like along the lines of to be nimble, and be able to make adjustments in a timely way. That they wanted to have a more flexible manner of moving things forward. Of course, it raises the question right away of will they be adhering to legislative intent or something, like how do we review, how do we know? So there's a balance, and I imagine you, Senator McDonald, would come to any such adjustment like this with a certain level of curiosity.
I mean, we've been around the barn once on this one and it burned. Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
the clean heat standard does not exist, does it?
Not yet,
At this time.
I mean,
Not yet.
So before the rule defining the clean heat standard and how they will be, those rules will be treated. It's being proposed that we authorize them to do things by order for rules that have not yet been written, and that when they are written, they are really just proposed rules because they have to pass as statute. Is that right?
well, that's an interesting way to say the question. I like it. I mean, as counsel, I mean, what I don't know is the extent. I get where you're going, I think, but.
So there is a statute that does say the clean heat
Yeah.
standard is established, so you did provide a lot of detail in statute establishing the clean heat standards. The rules implementing and filling in the details on the clean heat standards have yet to be proposed. And therefore not adopted. So, but yes, but then I would respond and say that subsection C and subsection D are existing language in the statute that you did pass. So, yes. Yes,
So we have a so-called check back coming this June. Where the rules for implementing the clean heat standard will be presented to us and to the public.
Next, that'd be January 25. That's the. I believe that's when we're.
I don't think it's in June.
Well, it was
No,
good.
another-
I thought it was, we will know what the plan is before the next election, so we can all declare whether we like it or not.
I think we'll have more information, but I think the rule doesn't, I'm trying to remember, I don't have all the dates fixed in my head, so it's not, I don't think it's until January 15 of 25. That we see a final design in the form of a rule and other pieces that are written.
There potentially will
Because
be
remember,
draft.
the whole motion was, it would get fleshed out in detail and be ready for legislative consideration, but for the next legislature. So I think, we'll, before the election, we'll know more about it. We just had a report through ANR about the thermal sector and how might things wrap up by, where might we be on emissions by 25 and 30 and 50? And the study that was presented included before it presumed for one of its scenarios, the Affordable Heat Act had been enacted. And then even had a chart for what the anticipated impact per cost would be for a gallon of heating fuel in the next decade or so. So there's more information coming than we had when we wrote the thing. But I don't think a final design is until January 25.
The date that's due should not be all that difficult to find out, and it's written down in law. So, but my understanding of the whole idea, this was the governor wanted this, was that basically just to kick the can down the road for a couple of years.
Well,
No one might say it, but that's really what it did.
we agreed to do with the governor.
Yeah, we agreed to that,
Yeah.
and that the purpose was that we would have a second chance to reconsider our irresponsible and overly idealistic ways.
But if you'd like to propose an amendment to this section limiting their ability to use rules, orders to alter rules, that is something you could do.
So we'll learn more about what the scope of the proposed change and their rationale for it. Again, this was me sort of carrying water neutrally across the street. That this would be helpful to us in our work. And when you read the in February 15, 2024 report from, there is a lot of work going on. So I don't
But
know.
we're supposed to revote. That's.
We're supposed, should the legislature, introduce a bill to implement the rules that are going to be presented to us in the public. Those rules are as can or may be changed by order by the PUC. Should they be put into statute?
So I'm gonna, thank you. So let's pause and we already passed the language that's here. What we're amending in this section is to what degree, what's the scope of C, right? I mean, so it was any order issued under the chapter. I don't remember what the chapter includes compared to just subsection C.
So you did give them authority to adopt a few different parts of the program by order, including the credit. And I think the part, something about the DVA. So I'd have to go back and look, but that's why I do think you should hear from the PUC about the scope that they're talking about here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I haven't been burned by this before.
Yeah.
As you recall.
That's why I was saying I thought you might be particularly curious about this language. Yeah.
And being assured by the board that it would never happen again in a letter to us. I just hope we're not inadvertently authorizing it to happen again.
Okay. Point well taken. Right, so I think we paused before going into section 4. Yeah.
Section 4 just fixes the cross-reference. And then section 5. So section 5 amends the tax-related provision. So in the bill that you passed last year, there was a temporary provision for the department to access confidential fuel records at the tax department. And so it was just for 1 year, and so this is actually amending the tax department's confidentiality statute. And it adds at the bottom of page 4. So they can disclose returns or return information to the Public Utility Commission and the Department of Public Service, provided the disclosure relates to the sale of heating fuel into or in the state for auditing compliance with the clean heat standard established in 30 VSA 94. So this is giving them a permanent and somewhat narrower than I think we were discussing last year, but still access to that data.
And I think explanation I heard was, setting up the registry, they had access to help them try to jumpstart their own database and expectations, but having ongoing access to tax would give them a chance to see whether or not anyone who should be reporting and registering was failing to register. Help them at least playing field even. Everyone should be in who has an obligation to be. Any other questions for council on this one?
So I see it was introduced by the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy.
Yeah, so I had this is my request.
You don't remember?
I don't remember.
It was January 30th. It was a great day.
The short of it is that the conversations I had with them, saying we could use some help amending statute with the PUC
The PUC.
in December.
Okay.
Was after our drafting deadline, so I said, I'll bring a committee bill forward. Then the committee kindly agreed to put it in so that we could have a bill in our committee to work through. So here it is.
And so
Thank
the
you
other,
for your.
the other ones too, the miscellaneous, let's do that.
Yeah, I think, personally, I have some questions about the bill, so.
I think, all of us, when it proceeded in good faith without prejudice, it's not like we're signing off, but we do want to have a legal method to have a conversation.
Thank you, yes.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Mr. Kowski on 255, 305, 306? Okay, thank you, everyone. I think that completes our work on the walkthroughs. I know people are interested in 258, so it's at the end of day yesterday. I didn't have a chance to look before committee this morning, see if we have a clean copy of 258, but I'll be touching base with Mr. O'Grady and try to have that, and it'll be if we're not still in the building, sent to everyone. Well, you get it as an email as well, but and then post it to our website, so we'll have a clean Fish and Wildlife bill as well. Those final edits.
Okay.
I'm hoping today before we go home, so that it's just tidied up before we leave the building. For the time being.
And do you want to vote today or?
No.
That's settled.
Yeah, I think, we, people may want to look at the language again, while we're all, it's still easy to have a conversation in person. We're also gonna have. We're about to break for the joint session, we could possibly gather after, but for now, I'm presuming that we won't regather the committee after the joint session, because I think we may only 20 minutes or something like that. And with that, let me just pause, look at our agenda. No, that's it. We had 4 up, 4 down. And we've completed our work for the morning. So thank you, everyone on the committee center watching. We hope you feel better instantly.